So the other day I received a particularly long message asking about advice on a vacation for a family of 9 to Hawaii. 7 days and 6 nights in Waikiki. No transportation, no rental car, but they'll be able to get around to certain activities once in a lifetime for this family. What would I do? I replied back and I tried my best to answer all of those questions, but as suggested by the person who sent me the message, maybe it might be easier to explain through a video, and so I thought I'd make this video response, and maybe other people would also find it equally helpful. As someone who grew up here and who lives here now, I appreciate the question. I think it's very interesting for a local to try and provide some advice. I also want to recommend the Hawaii Vacation Guide as a good resource for planning your trip. They have a really great YouTube channel that covers not just Waikiki, but also some of the other neighbor islands. So mahalo for sending me the questions, and I will try my best to answer them. All right, so first question, are there any shops in or near Waikiki in walking distance where I could purchase authentic Hawaiian aloha shirts, and how much will these cost? Okay, so first let's talk about what you mean by authentic Hawaiian aloha shirt. For me, there's two categories for aloha shirts. There's aloha shirts that tourists would wear, and then there's aloha shirts that locals would wear. If you want a touristy aloha shirt, ABC stores in Waikiki will probably be enough. The patterns are pretty bright and flowery, that very stereotypical Hawaii look. The fabric is kind of cheap, and you can kind of expect the material to be not as long lasting. I think they cost less than $30 for a shirt, and they might be fun while you're here in Hawaii to kind of just wear around, but I'm pretty sure you're probably never gonna wear them again once you go back, and that's kind of a shame. So good enough for just kind of for fun, but I personally would not buy that shirt. Now, if you want to wear an aloha shirt that locals wear, I would recommend Kahala or Tory Richard. Both have stores in Waikiki as well as online. The patterns are a little bit more formal, but that's more in line with what locals will actually wear here in Hawaii. I mean, I wear those shirts when I go to work. And the fabric is a lot better material, which means the shirt will last longer. Now, the shirts are a little bit expensive. They're over $100, but to me, it would be worth it because then you'd be able to go back to wherever you are from, and then you'd be able to wear that maybe in a more casual, but still somewhat formal setting. It's not gonna be super bright where people are gonna look at you like, whoa, what's going on? But they would be nice, and it would be a nice talking point, something to just have in the closet. And if you don't want to spend that much money on an aloha shirt, you could go check out Nordstrom Rack, where they have some of these nicer brands, and I think they sell for about $50. So the selection is not as great, but still, if you want some of those nicer shirts for a cheaper price, you might want to check them out. Okay, question number 2. In Waikiki, are there any local hole-in-the-wall shops, mom and pop shops, that have nice souvenirs to buy and take home? If not, is there a shopping plaza with great shopping? Well, that's a tough question to answer. It kind of depends on what kind of souvenirs you're looking for. If you just want like really generic, cheap souvenirs, you could probably just go to an ABC store, maybe even a Walmart, and just get your typical t-shirts, postcards, stickers, just real basic stuff, and yeah, you'd probably be good enough. And of course, you could buy some nice snacks, like at Honolulu Cookie Company, you just get some of those little pineapple-shaped cookies. Those are nice souvenirs. And in terms of small mom and pop shops, I'm not that familiar in Waikiki, but we did go to this small Snoopy store in Waikiki called Moni Moana, and it was quaint. They sell like Peanuts character memorabilia and just things, shirts, bags, cups, but the Peanuts characters are all tanned. So if you like that, it's kind of a novel thing if you're into Peanuts and Snoopy. And I also think if you're looking for like fun Hawaii shirts, I go check out 88 Tees in Waikiki. It's kind of a small shop, but very popular among tourists, as well as Crazy Shirts. Now, they're not really a mom and pop, but they have these fun designs that you might want to check out. Very diverse, very colorful, and I think they make great souvenir shirts. Now, in terms of shopping plazas or malls, you're gonna have International Marketplace as well as Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center. Now, as a local, I really don't go shopping down there. Those are more for tourists, but they do have some nice food places, but definitely a nice place to go and browse. You may want to go check out Ala Moana Shopping Center. It's where more locals go to go shopping. There's a lot of great food there, a lot of nice stores that aren't necessarily all high-end. There's definitely some nice high-end stores there. And Ala Moana is not that far from Waikiki. You could either catch the bus or take the Waikiki trolley. And when you get there, you'll definitely see more locals. Okay, next question. If I were to buy a whole bunch of souvenirs for family and friends, what would be the best way to transport those items back home? Via post office, or put in a duffel bag and check in an extra bag at the airport? So when it comes to bringing back souvenirs, my recommendation would either to bring an extra suitcase with you, like pack a suitcase within a suitcase, or just come to Hawaii with one suitcase or maybe two, and then buy a suitcase here and then pack all those things in there and just check that in on your flight. And yeah, you could put them in a box and ship them, but I don't know how long that would take to actually get to where you live. And typically when I go on a trip and I bring back souvenirs, I want to give those souvenirs away right when I get there because I'm so excited and I can talk with them and tell them about my trip. So expecting a delay on that, you may not be able to get your items for a while, and you kind of lose that trip momentum and it might get lost and all this other stuff. So to me, it'd just be easier to pack it with you. So when I typically go to Japan, I usually pack a small suitcase as well as a larger suitcase. The larger suitcase is more for my clothing because we usually tend to go for maybe a couple of weeks. But the small suitcase is all for souvenirs, all stuff that we're going to bring back to share with family and friends. And I want to make sure that I have enough room because sometimes I feel like you're always going to buy a little bit more than you expect. So always better to have that extra room. The bench has so many ants on it. There's so many ants there. Bummer. Number 4. I guess this would be my biggest question. Realistically, from a local perspective, how much spending money would I need to have for the trip? This would include food, souvenirs, and tipping, etc. The local in me is, of course, going to say, bring plenty money, right? Because more money from outside the state pouring into the state is better for our economy. But I understand that people have budgets, and I think people should vacation within their budget. So here's my recommendation. For 1 week in Hawaii, I'd recommend $1,500 per person. And that may seem like a lot of money, but I found that that's quite reasonable. Now, I don't personally carry that much money on me as a local. I usually don't have any money on me. But I'm just saying, as a tourist, I think that would be a good amount to bring with you. When I go to Japan, I usually bring about $2,000 per week that I'm there. But it's a little bit different in Japan because they're a more cash-based society. There's also no tipping, and of course there's a conversion rate. So I'd rather just have more cash than I need. If you're just talking about meals though, I'd recommend about $20 per meal per person, and that would include the tip. And I think it's really good that you're thinking about providing a tip. And for most of the people working food service jobs, it's a struggle because they have to work multiple jobs. Now, that's not really your problem as a visitor, and you shouldn't feel guilty for that. You did nothing wrong. But I think it's something to keep in mind. You know, if the food comes a little bit late, or maybe the service isn't as good after their long shift, maybe just give them a break. Maybe practice patience or grace because, you know, they might have had a really long day. Now, in terms of spending for things like souvenirs, I probably would charge it on a credit card. And what I typically do is I will write down every single item that I charge just to keep track of it, and I review that every day because I just don't want to get out of control spending when I go on vacation. Because there was one time where I went on a trip and I didn't check my credit card until I got the statement, and I was like, whoa, I spent a lot of money. It kind of helps to deter a little bit of overspending, but it's just good to know what you're actually spending as you're spending it. Now, it probably goes without saying that if you're bringing a lot of cash with you, you want to make sure that it's safe. I would not carry the entire amount with you whenever you go outside. Just carry what you need, as well as you want to make sure that you keep the cash safe in your hotel room, whether that's hiding it in a bag or putting it in the room safe. And yes, the thieves know that tourists bring plenty of money, especially the Japanese tourists. So just be careful if you're out there. And the thing is, you can also have a great time in Hawaii without spending a whole bunch of money. There's a lot of free stuff that you can do, museums, you can go to the beach, you can go on hikes, and those things are relatively inexpensive. I wish I could get this shot, but unfortunately the best exposure is this way, so we're gonna have to face backwards. And lastly, do you have any tips on what we can do to relax and fully experience the Hawaiian culture, since this can potentially be a once-in-a-lifetime trip? So two things here, tips for relaxing and tips for learning about the Hawaiian culture. Since I don't know what types of things you like to do to relax, I'm just gonna speak for myself on things that I like to do to relax. Because I'm a fairly simple person. If I was vacationing in Hawaii for a week, every single day I'd wake up at about 5:30. Then I'd go walking on the beach, bring a book, bring my journal, and just sit and write until I get hungry. Then after that, I would eat an acai bowl in the morning, probably walk around, maybe Waikiki, maybe Ala Moana, maybe just a park where there are people, but where I can be just quiet and by myself. Then at lunchtime at about 11 o'clock, I'd go and grab something to eat. I don't know what it would be, just grab something. After that, I'd probably go back to the hotel room to relax, maybe even take a nap, and then spend the rest of the afternoon in my hotel room until it was dinner time. Then I'd go out, eat dinner, and then maybe take a little quick walk after that, and then basically read for the rest of the night until I go to sleep. Now, that may sound simple and boring for some people, but that's what I would do if I wanted to relax and rest in Hawaii. Oh, and I'd also make sure to find some time to look at the ocean and just hear the waves, because I heard that there are some psychological benefits to just seeing the ocean and hearing the waves, and yeah, I would make some time for that. Because to me, walking and reading and writing are relaxing. I don't want to be in traffic, especially the North Shore. I don't want to drive through traffic. I don't want to be in that crowdedness and all that busyness. I'm on vacation. I want to just relax. And yeah, sure, there are some people who, like my mom, when they go on a trip, they want to just fill their calendar with a whole bunch of stuff from like the morning to the evening, and that's just what they want to do. On the other hand, my dad is more relaxed. He just wants to stay in the hotel room all day and basically do nothing, which, yeah, that would be me. And with a group that large of about 9 people, I'd make sure not to over schedule too much. I leave blocks of time for basically free time where if people want to do certain things, they can just go out and do them. Because being stuck with 8 other people who have different interests and ideas on what makes the perfect Hawaii vacation can be kind of miserable if everyone's pulling in their own direction and everyone wants to do all the things. So I think having that freedom to just go and have like your alone time, I think that's perfectly okay. Now, in terms of experiencing the Hawaiian culture, I'm assuming that you mean native Hawaiian culture and not the Hawaii like local culture. Those are two pretty different things. If you want to experience like the local culture, you're probably gonna have to go to some kind of family party or just some kind of event where there's just mostly local people. But I'm assuming in this case that you want to learn more about native Hawaiian culture. A lot of people will recommend the Polynesian Cultural Center on the North Shore, and it's a good place. But it's an all-day thing because it's so far away, and so it depends on your schedule if you want to stay out. So actually my recommendation would be a place like the Bishop Museum. It's kind of slow-paced, so you can kind of tour the museum at whatever speed you want to. It's air-conditioned, which is great. It's also kind of spread out, and there's a nice good walk to it because it's several different buildings and you can go and check out different exhibits. It's in Kalihi, which is close to Honolulu, so generally speaking, you could get there fairly quickly. I'd also recommend Iolani Palace. It has some Hawaiian history in there as well, so you might want to go and check that out. If this was a once-in-a-lifetime trip though, you probably want to go and check out Pearl Harbor. As a local, I think I've gone maybe 3 times in my life. Not something that I typically go to, but if you're only coming to Hawaii once, I'd say go and check it out. It's worth seeing. So while this channel is typically about what life in Hawaii is like from a local's perspective, I do appreciate those questions about vacations. And like I recommended, check out the Hawaii Vacation Guide for like a lot more details and a lot more advice on vacation stuff. But thank you again for the questions, and I hope that I answered them enough. Because actually it's quite interesting as a local to think about these things. I don't typically think about enjoying Hawaii from a visitor's standpoint. I live here, I work here, I raise my family here. The things that I'm interested in are different from the things that people out there are interested in. When it comes to food, I'd rather just eat at Zippy's. I don't want to go eat at a luau. I'd rather go to a small mall like Windward Mall rather than a crowded, kind of expensive mall like the International Marketplace. And to me, I want to find a nice quiet beach where I can just sit and relax and hear the ocean rather than the busy beaches of Waikiki. But I hope that you and everyone else who comes to Hawaii has a wonderful time while they're here. Enjoy the food, enjoy the culture, enjoy the people. Thanks for watching, and aloha.